Hello, everyone. Ted Lacksonen, the country thinker here, bringing you another episode of The Eagle Has Crashed. And this week we will do the first half of August of 2029. As a little bit of a recap, last week Dylan Johansson's vehicle was sabotaged and he had a very nasty wreck on Route 315 in Columbus. We also visited with Eve Anderson, who took the dirty little secret of her affair with the president and sold it to the Defense Contractors Association. And we also had Nate North declined a loan because of his labor problems. So things just seem to be getting worse for the old Nate North and Cassie North and their North Fab company. Now next week, when we conclude August of 2028, we're going to meet the last of the main characters that are going to be in the book, including one person from Ohio and Republican leadership. I hope everyone's enjoying these podcasts, and let's go ahead and jump into August of 2029. Fed Chief Sullivan marched into a conference room and saw Secretary Waters sitting in a chair with his hands behind his head and his feet up on a mahogany table. She dropped a stack of manila envelopes noisily onto the service, and he grinned. "Good afternoon, Andrea." She nodded. "Good afternoon, Ben." Sullivan tipped her head to the side. "I've only got a few minutes, so let's get started." "Very well. What's your game plan?" "Let's make sure we're working from the same sheet of music. We're falling into a recession. Agreed?" Waters sighed and nodded ever so slightly. "And our cumulative national debt is the primary cause." Waters scratched the back of his head. "It's not helping." "I'll take that as a yes. Now, there are a lot of components to my strategy as to how I'm going to deal with this situation. You already know that forcing the president and Congress into fiscal austerity measures is one big piece." "Yeah, I got that memo. Don't agree with it, but I got it." "Bottom line, Andrea, is how much are you going to lower interest rates?" "I'm not lowering them." Waters pulled his feet off the table and slammed them on the floor. "That's insane, Sullivan! You're not going to lower interest rates? We need to make credit cheaper and get it flowing again." "We're not in a credit crunch here, Ben. No one is looking for credit right now." "I know. It's called a liquidity trap. That's Econ 101, basic Keynesian theory, Sullivan. You need to break the trap by lowering interest rates, and we'll do our part by spending more. We've got to get that cash flowing." Sullivan rolled her eyes. "My staff psychologists have been studying the market, and people won't borrow, even at zero interest right now. People are saving, as are businesses, and they are going to save regardless of what I do. I'm not interested in killing their saving when there's no chance it will induce them to borrow or spend anymore." "Here you go again with your psychology mumbo-jumbo. We need you to stimulate the economy, not kill it like you're proposing." Waters pulled his hair. "You're infuriating, Sullivan. What you're doing will kill the economy." Sullivan pointed her finger at Waters and scowled. "Don't you accuse me of killing the economy. The economy is sagging under the weight of our national debt. I am trying to make the best out of a bad situation that I did not create." Sullivan emphasized the not by stabbing the table with her right index finger. "Let me repeat myself, Mr. Secretary. This recession is not of my making." Waters clapped his hands. "Wonderful performance, Andrea. Bravo, bravo. But you are very wrong. We have got to do something to get the economy going again, and quickly. You have control of the most powerful economic tools in the world. Use them." "Monetary policy is a powerful economic tool, Ben, but it has limitations. And as all of my predecessors have learned to varying degrees, there are unintended consequences to even the most carefully measured policies. I believe the course the Fed is pursuing is the best we can do under very difficult circumstances." Waters slapped the top of his head several times before pointing a finger at the chairwoman while his green eyes flared. "If this recession gets worse and America drives off the cliff, it will be your fault, Sullivan. Don't let history remember you that way." Sullivan stood up and grabbed her folders. "Your cliff analogy is inaccurate, Mr. Secretary. We are driving 100 miles an hour toward a cliff. You want me to press the accelerator to the floor. I am going to deny your request that I do so. Good day, Mr. Secretary." Sullivan spun on her heel and stomped out of the conference room. Eve Anderson stood beside the president's desk and buttoned her blouse as the president looked out the Oval Office window and pulled up his pants. "A little birdie told me you're having some trouble paying the bills, Chris," she said. He squinted and his left cheek scrunched as he turned to face her while he buckled his belt. "Where did you hear that?" Anderson ignored him. "It's no secret you'd like to see the defense budget trimmed, but I think that's pretty unfair." "What the hell are you talking about, Eve?" "Since the economy is slowing down, it's in everyone's best interest that the government increase defense spending to stimulate the economy." The president's eyebrows furrowed. "Since when is a lobbyist an expert in economic policy? Screw the defense contractors. They're a bunch of greedy assholes." Eve grinned and sauntered up to the president. She stroked his flushed cheek. "Aw, Chris, be reasonable. If you cut defense spending, it's possible that the media could find out that a certain commander-in-chief has been having an affair." The president's face turned pale. "How the hell would they know anything?" "I don't know," she shrugged as she ran a hand through his hair, "but I'm pretty sure they would find out." Maynard's face turned red, and he pointed at her angrily. "You fucking slut," he howled. "You can't prove anything." Anderson smiled. "I've gathered a lot of DNA evidence over the last year." "That's disgusting." His expression looked defeated. "You've been screwing me for a year just for the defense lobby?" Eve threw her hair back and laughed. "No, I actually enjoyed having sex with you for a while, but recently it dawned on me that I could make a fortune from our affair without going public." She paused and stroked her long, dishwater blonde hair back with both hands. "But at the end of the day, I treated you just like every other politician I've had an affair with. I gave DNA samples to my lawyer, just in case." "Why the hell would you do that?" "Girls who sleep with politicians have a bad habit of disappearing. If that happened to me, I wanted to know that my lawyer could expose them and destroy them." The president stood with slumped shoulders and his mouth slightly open. "So don't think you can make this problem go away by sending your goons after me, Chris. It'll be much worse for you if you do. Presidential immunity wouldn't spare you from conspiracy for murder charges." Their eyes met, and she knew that he had folded. She reached the desk and pushed the intercom button. "Danny, Bobby, will you please escort me to my vehicle?" Her eyes returned to the stunned president. "It would be in your best interest to work with the defense contractors now. They've got copies of all the evidence, and I can't control how they use it." The two Secret Service officers entered and waited by the door as Anderson sauntered toward the exit. As she approached the Oval Office door, Anderson paused momentarily and turned back to the president. "And one last thing, Chris," she said with a wry smile. "Try not to think of me when you kiss Amy goodnight." Megan Calhoun didn't like family consultations with patients. The self-proclaimed potty-mouthed redneck knew they went south far too often because it only took one upset family member to drag the rest down with them. That's what was happening. She was in a small room at Licking Memorial Hospital to give Dr. Mitchell support, and he needed it. Gretchen Gerbaugh was terminally ill with pancreatic cancer, but her husband didn't believe it. Gary Gerbaugh was a typical working-class Ohioan who thought of himself as a tough guy. They all thought that, Megan knew, until they watched their wives go through the slow process of dying. 12 years as an oncology nurse had taught her a thing or two about how people responded to death. The Gerbaugh boys were there too, 3 of Newark's finest. Megan suspected they were as stupid as they sounded. The youngest smelled like diesel. "But what about SRT?" Gary Gerbaugh pleaded, with a greasy ball cap scrunched up in his hands. "Norma Henderson had the same thing as Gretchen, and that SRT thingy worked real good on her." Megan remembered Norma Henderson. She had been in about a year ago with early-stage breast cancer, which was not the same as advanced pancreatic cancer. SRT was a new treatment, and it wouldn't do a thing for Gretchen Gerbaugh. "I'm sorry, but SRT isn't approved for your wife's form of cancer," Dr. Mitchell responded. "You docs make this shit up as you go," said Stinks of Diesel. "Work for Mrs. Henderson." Megan had her eye on the youngest Gerbaugh. What he needed to accept was that his mother was dying and have a good cry. Instead, he was denying reality, and his sadness was morphing into anger. "Are you a mechanic?" Megan asked. Stinks of Diesel nodded. Dr. Mitchell showed relief that she was intervening. Every nursing staff should have at least one redneck to help with these kinds of folks, he thought. "Do you put unleaded gas into a diesel engine?" she asked. He squinted. "Course not." "Well, different fuels for different types of engines are like different treatments for different types of cancers. Using SRT for pancreatic cancer would be like putting diesel into a gasoline engine." She caught Dr. Mitchell's gaze. "Thank you for the lifeline." "Just the same," the upset husband pleaded, I want to give it a try. We can't just sit here and do nothing and let her die. Actually, that's exactly what we're going to do, Megan thought. Why do men always think they can fix things? Comfort her. That's all you can do. Yeah, Mom should get the SR whatever, said the son in overalls. Megan could feel the emotional temperature rising, and it was getting damn uncomfortable. Please, gentlemen, Dr. Mitchell pleaded. Understand that I couldn't order SRT right now even if I wanted. Why? It's not covered by Medicare. Bad move, Doc, Megan thought. Well, hell, we'll just pay for it ourselves, Overalls offered. Mitchell shook his head. Once Medicare and the insurance companies stopped covering SRT, the hospital sold the equipment. You're shitting me, Doc, Stinks of Diesel yelled, his face turning red. A machine that makes people better and you up and sell it? That's the stupidest shit I ever heard. He took a step closer to Dr. Mitchell. Megan debated in her head. Should I yell for security, or will that light the fuse? Please, Mr. Gerbaugh. Mitchell held up his hand. It's not my fault the government is cutting back on services. And as I told you, SRT wouldn't help your mother anyway. Megan looked out to the hallway. A nurse was watching from the station. Megan motioned for her to get help. The nurse nodded. Turning back, Megan looked into the youngest Gerbaugh's eyes and saw that he had gone beyond reason. Sadness was churning into frothy anger, and Dr. Mitchell had given him someone to blame for his mother's inevitable death. Her pulse began to throb in her neck. Something bad was about to happen, but she didn't know how it would play out. You and the fucking government's killing my mom, Stinks of Diesel hollered as he lunged at Dr. Mitchell, knocking the physician to the ground. Megan pounced on the attacker's back, but Overalls pulled her off. The youngest Gerbaugh pinned the oncologist to the floor and began slugging him in the head. Megan had seen lots of fights in her day, outside the schoolyard and in bars. Dr. Mitchell was taking as bad of a beating as she had seen, as the distraught young man unleashed his pent-up emotions on the curled-up physician with blow after blow. He's going to need reconstructive surgery, she thought as she scrambled to her feet. Overalls pushed her back down. 2 security officers rushed in and pulled Stinks of Diesel off the severely beaten physician. Blood was splattered on his fists. Mitchell curled up in a fetal position. The arrival of the guards had an immediate calming effect on the other 3 Gerbaugh men, and Overalls released his grip on Megan. She stomped out into the hallway, shaking. God, I hope this isn't a sign of things to come, she thought. Not with rumors of many more upcoming cuts to services flying around. Okay, so that's the end of episode 8, and next week we will wrap up August of 2029. Hope you're all enjoying it. And as always, if you would like to purchase The Eagle Has Crashed, you can get it at my website, which is clearpeakpress.com, and that's the only place where you can get an autographed copy. Just fill in a request for an autograph in the instructions to seller block. It's also available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the iTunes Store, the Sony Store, smashwords.com, where you can get it electronically for just about every device imaginable, and there are many other retailers where you can get The Eagle Has Crashed. So anyhow, hope everything's going well and have a nice week, and we will see you next Sunday. Have a great day. Bye.